Choosing a country to move to is challenging for any number of reasons. But sometimes the decision is pretty obvious, yet we don't see it. We refuse to go there. We don't entertain the idea of moving to that place that we really want to. And we settle. Well, in this video, I'm going to unpack the topic of settling, why we settle, and how to move through that so that you can live the life that you know that you want to live. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have already subscribed to my channel, thank you. If you have not yet, please consider doing so and clicking that notification bell so that each time I upload a video about moving abroad, life in France, or finding the confidence and courage to live life on your terms, you will be notified. I'm Patricia Brooks, and I live in the south of France and have been here for the last 5 years. And it's been an incredible experience to be here. I'm so grateful that I moved through my fears and doubts and got past some settling myself to get here. The reason that I am doing this video, I was inspired to do this video because I was chatting with a woman on Facebook. And she reached out to me and she said to me, she started the conversation off by, Patricia, I absolutely love Paris. And I am going to do a scouting trip in other parts of France because I've been told that living in Paris is as expensive as living in New York. And when I retire, I don't know that I'll be able to afford Paris. Are there other towns or cities that you could recommend to me? So I got this message. It was late one night and I really didn't know how to respond because I'm not a relocation specialist. And I really believe that the way that I chose the place I lived was by feel. It was how I felt, how the place made me feel. So, for me to suggest places just didn't feel genuine. So I slept on it. The next morning I got up and I replied to this message. And I started off with, it really sounds like Paris is the place for you. What is it about Paris that speaks to you so? And then I went on to say that it absolutely makes sense to scout out other cities that could feel as good to you as Paris, but might be a little bit more affordable. And then I continue, but if you don't find that place, then maybe it's time to crunch the numbers and see what it would take for you to live in Paris the way that you want to live and what that gap is so that you can then figure out different ways where you could bridge that gap. And then I went on to say, the older I get, the less I like to settle. And that was that. A few hours later, I got a response back from her. And she said, wow, what you said really hit home when you said, the older I get, the less I like to settle. Maybe I'm overthinking this, right? And I share this with you because I think far too many of us do settle because we don't believe that something is feasible or practical, or maybe that it will even happen. And so we just don't even dare to dream that. And I think that when we have something in our heart, we should definitely entertain it and see if it's truly right for us. But sometimes we settle nonetheless. All right. Have you ever settled for something? When you did do something that was close to the thing that you wanted to do, but not exactly the thing, how did that make you feel? All right. Give this video a thumbs up if you've ever settled for anything. All right. So why is it that we know in our hearts the thing that we want, and yet we either don't go for it or we go for the thing that is the next best thing? Well, we do this for several reasons. And I think they have to do with blocks. There are external blocks and internal blocks. Internal blocks are those things like fear, self-doubt, not feeling worthy, things that are more deeply rooted, and which I help the women in my program to move through so that they can live in the place that they most so desire. And then there are things called external blocks. And this is something that is outside of ourselves that we can solve for and then move forward toward the thing we're going to. Some examples of external blocks are not having enough money to do the thing we want, or not having enough time to do the thing we want. And these are external to us because it's not something inside of us that is causing us to not move forward. So in the situation of wanting to live in Paris, but Paris being too expensive, that very well could be an external block. Sometimes external blocks, however, do mask internal blocks, like the fear, right? We say, oh, it's too expensive, but we're saying that because we're afraid to move forward. So it's not necessarily so cut and dried, but suffice it to say, there are these two types of blocks. So the suggestion that I gave this woman in the chat was, well, if you don't find that place that feels right to you, and you know that Paris is the place, then it's time to kind of look at the numbers and see how much you need to earn in order to live in the place that you truly want to live in. And I think that's one piece of it. The second piece of it is to, solve for that, see what that would need to be. The other piece of that is to do some soul searching and understand if you're willing to sacrifice in order to live in the place that you want to live in. So if you need to have a part-time job in retirement, is that something you're willing to do in order to live in the place you want to live in? And the answer might be no, and that's fine. And then you can find a place that feels right to you for what you are willing to sacrifice. And that's not settling. That is going in wide-eyed saying, yeah, it's really not worth it for me to live in this really expensive city when I've worked all of my life and I'm just ready not to work anymore. Or, oh yeah, it's really worth it for me to be in that place because it felt so good and I know in my heart that's where I'm supposed to be. And I can find a part-time job that I enjoy doing, right? And it's not going to be a grind. And so in that case, then you go for what you felt like you wanted in the first place, right? So that is a little bit of a breakdown on the how you go about not settling. You solve for it. How much money do I need to have that I don't have in order to do this thing that I want? And number two, am I willing to make the sacrifice to get there? And then go from there. Move forward or move forward with a different plan. Okay. When I was considering moving to France, I avoided taking any action because I thought it would be too expensive, that I didn't have enough money. And so when I finally hired a coach, that was the first question she had for me. Well, how much will it cost for you to live in France for a year and get this visitor visa? And I said to her, I didn't know because I was afraid to look at that. I was afraid to solve for that. I was afraid that it would dash my dreams of living in France. Well, when I finally looked, I saw that I had enough to go on a visitor visa for a couple of years. And I was happily surprised. However, had I fallen short, if I didn't have enough to prove to the French government that I could support myself for a year, well, I knew how much I was lacking, and then I could go about earning what was missing had I believed that was worth the sacrifice. And I would have, had I not had enough, I would have seen that it was worth it because I felt like France was where I needed to be. So that is a real life example of moving through an external block. Okay. Now, I just want to share this other tidbit with you because I think it's pretty interesting. Back in 2012, 2013 timeframe, when I was losing 75 pounds of excess weight, I was doing the Weight Watcher system. And so I could eat whatever I wanted to, but I just had to eat it in smaller portions. And so there would be some days where I would crave a piece of cake or I would crave fried chicken. And I would not allow myself to eat the fried chicken or the cake. And I would settle for things that were really probably even not close substitutes for this thing that I wanted. I wanted this thing, and so I would nibble on this, and then I'd nibble on that, and then I'd nibble on this, and then I'd nibble on that. Nothing satisfied that craving. And at the end of the day, I still wanted that fried chicken or that piece of cake. And you know what I did? I went and I had the cake or I had the chicken. And I felt bad. And you know why I felt bad? Was because I was dancing all around the thing that I wanted. And in so doing, I consumed many more calories than I would have had I just not settled and gone for the thing that I wanted, right? Had I scratched that itch initially, right? And it's just kind of a similar thing to what I'm talking about here in settling. Okay? So what do you think about this? What are some of the reasons that you have settled in the past? Let me know in the comments. If you think that you would like some help brainstorming some ways to maybe get rid of some of these external blocks, or maybe some internal blocks you might have to making a move abroad, I'd love to have a conversation and help you work through that and see if working with me could help you to get to where you want to be sooner and with more ease. So I'm going to put a link to my calendar in the description where you can schedule time to talk to me. Now, I want to thank you so much for watching to the end. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and you might want to tune into these videos here because I know you will enjoy them. That is all I have for you today. I will see you again next time. Bye for now.